Welcome into my gated community. You can call me the doorman, and I want to share with you some of the stories that landed some of our, let's say, guests here. Tonight's story is about Melanie Goodwin, a 19-year-old University of North Texas student whose late-night trip to a convenience store would change her life forever. If you have a sister, daughter, or a girlfriend, you might hold them a little tighter after watching this one tonight. Good thing the cops have a ton of video with the suspect in the time of question, and all they have to do is put the pieces together to nab this killer. Let me share with you the timeline of events. September 24th, 2007. Melanie Goodwin is working for Red Bull this evening, visiting Dallas area GameStop video stores, handing out free Red Bull to those waiting in line for the midnight release of Halo 3. At the same time, we have Ernesto Reyes, who's been loitering at the Quik Trip in Denton, Texas for the last hour and a half. He's been desperately calling his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Andrea, other friends, or anyone to give him a ride and a place to stay. The manager had tried to help Reyes get a ride from Andrea, but she refused, saying Reyes had stolen her car. Melanie calls her boyfriend, Ali Valencia, to say that she has finished work and she's on her way to his place. Let's hear it from him.
I was in bed when she had called me, and I was like, yeah, babe, I'm gonna leave the door open, just come up. I asked her to stop. She was gonna bring me home chocolate milk and some Cheetos, and I woke up 2 hours later, and she wasn't home.
So it's 3 a.m. now, and Reyes has shown up at his friend Donavan Young's house. He's telling him, hey, I killed somebody. So he brings Donavan Young down to the car, and I'll let Donavan tell you in his own words what he saw.
It's a two-door car, so they got like the little triangle window. I looked through there, and that's when I seen her in the back seat.
Do you remember anything about her undergarments, her underwear?
I remember she had a skirt on. I'm not sure what top or anything like that. I think her underwear were slightly pulled down.
And were you able to see anything about her face?
I seen her eyes were open. When I looked in the back seat, he said he killed someone that looked like a dead person. He said he needed some gas. He said he needed a few dollars. I said, I don't have any, but I do have a few dollars.
Ernesto Reyes can next be seen backing Melanie's car into the Chevron station, presumably to hide her from view. He's going to find out the station's closed. Then he must notice he's got some blood on his shirt. So then he's going to be flipping it inside out here. Look at that. He ends up getting $1.76 worth of gas at the 7-Eleven. "4:06 a.m. at the Transtech building. A man could be seen pulling what looks like a body out of the car, back up to the car for something else, back down the hill. A huge flash, back in the car, backs up the car, gets the heck out of there. About the same time, Officer Koo was patrolling an apartment complex that had seen a rash of car thefts and spots a car parked in an area reserved for oversized vehicles.
When I rolled into that particular apartment complex, I started moving towards the back. It was basically one of those parking areas that you don't normally see cars parked in. When I got out and got a closer look at the vehicle, I did notice the odor of gasoline coming from the vehicle and a red 1-gallon gas can sitting in the driver's seat. Something still didn't just feel right about it. So when I got back in the car, I typed in some notes about what I'd seen. The 1-gallon gas can in the driver's seat, the odor of gasoline, the hood being cold to the touch, and cleared it with dispatch at that point.
Now, when Ali woke up 2 hours later and she still hadn't arrived at his house, he says,
I called and called and called and called. I was trying to calm myself down, like, everything has to be okay.
hoping for an innocent explanation, Ali held off calling the police. Around 11 a.m., and Mr. Randolph arrived at Transtech Merchant Services at the 3200 block of Keller Springs Road in Carrollton for a job interview. He says, they said I didn't meet the dress code, so I was leaving to change clothes, and that's when I saw the body, laying face up right over the hill. You couldn't have seen it unless you took a couple steps over the hill. Here is the 911 call.
Carrollton 911, address of your emergency.
Ma'am, this lady just spotted a burnt body over here. We had Kelly Springs Road.
I'm sorry, what just happened, sir?
There's a burnt female body over here on the other side of this damn thing.
I don't want anyone to touch anything, sir.
Oh, I'm up in the church.
Okay, keep everybody away from it.
At 11 a.m., Carrollton, Texas Police Detective Greg Frey is the first investigator on scene.
We were afraid that might be a serial killing. Just the way that the body was laid out in the ditch, it almost looked like it was posed with her legs facing the parking lot and knees kind of up. And you can only tell that it's a female by her hair and by the French fingernail tips that she's had done. I've seen my share of terrible things that people do to each other. This one is probably the most horrific that I've seen.
Detective Freyd continues.
When you have nothing to go on, just a body in a ditch, that's not a whole lot. So we just started expanding from that area. We had patrolmen go out to businesses around that area looking for video that just might happen to capture something, and that's when somebody noticed that the Trans-Tech building happened to have a camera that was directed out towards the parking lot.
About the same time police were discovering Melanie's burned body, Young is dropping Reyes off at the apartment complex from Melanie's car. The plan is to take Melanie's car to the 2100 block of Marsh Lane and, quote, blow it up after a failed attempt to burn the car there. The car would later be found at a different location along Dallas Drive in Denton, Texas. The police had a Jane Doe on their hands because there were no missing person reports, but they did have the Trans-Tech video, and investigators pored over that with video enhancement tools and identified the car as being a Saturn. And then they went over the call log from the previous night and found the Saturn that smelled like gas that Officer Q reported to be too much of a coincidence. They ran the license plate. It came back to a Glenn Goodwin in Arlington, Texas, and they went to pay them a visit.
Mrs. Goodwin answers the door, and I ask her, do you own a red Saturn? She says, yes, I do. It's my daughter's car. And at that moment, in my mind, I knew that I no longer was looking for my suspect, that I had to do 180. I'm now looking at my victim.
The body in the parking lot and Melanie Goodwin are now linked. It was a difficult visit. Detective Freyd had prepared himself for an arrest, not a death notification.
I'm thinking, okay, she's missing. They found her car, she's missing. Then they asked about a ring she was wearing. And my mind's just working, and finally it just clicked. And I said, do you have a body? And Detective Freyd just put his head down and said yes.
It's difficult for me to say that it's Melanie because the body is so badly burnt that I couldn't say for sure that that was her.
And then they asked if I had a picture of her. And I went back to the bedroom and I got a picture. And I got on my knees and I said, oh God, please don't let this be her. Don't let something happen to her.
It was a surprise gut blow to Melanie's mom. But Peggy Goodwin is a trained software programmer. And through her tears on her home PC, she actually gathers herself enough to help police close in on where her daughter may have been last seen alive.
I went into this business mode trying to find my daughter, and it wasn't that I wasn't feeling anything or scared or upset or collapsing and crying, but I knew I had access to all the information they needed to find Melanie.
She called Melanie's boyfriend at college to see when the last time he had spoken to her.
You know, I could tell she was worried by the way she was talking to me, saying, you know, if I had seen Melanie, was the last time I talked to Melanie, you know, what do I know?
Ollie tells Melanie's mom she had not shown up at his house as planned. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Detective Freyd sends a fellow investigator to question the young man, who they approach as a possible suspect.
On the evening of September 25th, we contacted Ollie at the university. We asked him to come to the North Texas Police Department and speak with us.
Detectives have him take off his shirt to check for signs of a struggle. None. And his alibi that he was with roommates all night checks out. Plus, cell records show he was talking to Melanie by phone until she disappeared. Finally, as police interviewed him, he just did not fit the crime.
He's the all-American boy, a former wrestler, does well in school, never been in trouble, doesn't have that profile. That helped us in clearing him rather quickly.
But it takes a while for the stunned Ollie to realize Melanie is not just a missing person, and there was not an innocent explanation, as he had hoped, for her disappearance.
I asked the officer, so is there a good chance we're going to find her? And that's when he was like, son, you know, she's passed away. And after that, it just, I was just taken out of this world.
It was Ollie who led police to her last stop before disappearing. Feeling terrible about his innocent request for a post-midnight snack with his girlfriend, he pointed them to the convenience store where Melanie made her final call.
I couldn't even look at her parents in the face because I felt as it was my fault. My fault she's not here today. She wasn't here yesterday. She won't be here tomorrow.
He's outside the store when Melanie, dressed in a skirt and top, comes in. She heads right over to the snack aisle for the Cheetos her boyfriend Ollie had wanted, and then the dairy case for the chocolate milk. The clerk is busy, but remembers Melanie had gone back to the restroom, and that's when she meets the loiterer, about her age, but desperate, out of options, and turning to a fellow 19-year-old for help.
And he remembers as best he can that the defendant was in fact asking her for a ride. And you can very faintly hear it on the videotape.
And I think the guy for a while walked around and he said, hey, you mind if I sleep here? And I thought, why would you ask somebody? I'm not a hotel. The bits and pieces I caught, you know, I think he approached her for a ride somewhere. And I think she was a little loath or reluctant to give him one.
You can hear him say certain things like, my truck broke down, or I would walk but these shoes aren't good, and it's just a quarter of a mile, it's just up to McKinney Avenue. And you hear her saying, she wasn't a naive girl, you know, and she knew that that's not the thing to do.
Melanie then walks away, and the vagrant walks out of the store. She then heads for the checkout and gets on her cell phone for the final time to tell Ollie she is on the way home.
What were you talking about?
She was just telling me how hot she was looking because she had just tanned.
And you told her you'd leave the door open for her?
Oh, yes, sir. That came later. Yes, sir.
Back at the store, Melanie finishes paying at the counter, walks out the door, and heads to her car, Cheetos and chocolate milk in hand.
And that's when you see the defendant loop around.
And is there any videotape outside the store? Do you see them?
No, that's the mystery. There are certain angles where you can see what looks to be the headlights of her car backing out to leave the store, but we don't know exactly what happened out there.
Police obtained the convenience store's phone records, which led them to Reyes' ex-girlfriend, Andrea, who was cooperating with the police investigation. Detective Freyd asked Andrea what was the Carrollton connection, since Reyes mostly hung out in the Denton, Texas area. She told them he had a friend who had recently moved from Denton to Carrollton, Donavan Young. Police issued a murder warrant for the arrest of Ernesto Reyes. September 27th, 19-year-old Donavan Young was arrested on suspicion of tampering with evidence. His car was impounded, and on the back seat on the floor, Melanie's camera was found with 2 creepy selfies Reyes took of himself while at Donovan's house.
I could put down my life, I could put that on my mama, and I could put that on any son that I ever had if I do have a son. I can't tell him I'm not going to have no part of it. That's what I was telling him. And then, you give him the gas money, you give him the gas. Yeah, I gave him the money. It was pocket for gas. Right, but don't you think that makes you part of it? When you carry the gas can to go burn that body, I ain't got nothing to do with it.
Police returned to the complex, but Melanie's car was gone. A burnt sock and a gas cap were recovered. I guess Reyes was trying to blow up the car like a Molotov cocktail. It's pretty impossible to do. You need the air-fuel mixture just right or nothing will happen. Police locate Melanie's car along Dallas Drive in Denton. Police forensics teams pore over the car for any clues. This was the killer's second attempt to burn the car, and this time he blunders by leaving the windows up and the fire goes out on its own. Andrea tells police that after burning Melanie's body, Reyes fled to Mexico. So the U.S. Marshals got involved and tracked him down and found him at his grandmother's house. They were waiting for the warrant to be signed, and by the time it got signed, Reyes was gone. They tracked him down to another house within the same village, and as they pulled up, Ernesto was walking out of the front house, and they just arrested him on the spot. but Mexico would not release him to the United States unless the Texas DA promised not to seek the death penalty, which they did because they just wanted justice for the Goodwin family. Now, I'm going to show you Ernesto Reyes' interview with Univision, and this is actually going to be his defense when he's on trial. They play this tape. So check this out.
No, I'm not a killer. I've never been a killer. I've never wanted to be a killer. I was just there at the wrong place, hanging with the wrong people. And I'm innocent. Soy inocente.
I am innocent. I am innocent. And the person who did it is outside laughing about me. I asked for a ride, and she said to me, "Where are you going?" And I told her, "To my friend's house," and she said, "Yes." She said to me, "Do you know where I can find some drugs?" I asked what kind, and she said, "Whatever I can get."
In the interview played out in court, Reyes then claims he had her drive to Donavan Young's apartment, where he got in the back seat, while Melanie and Donavan sat in the front seat sharing marijuana and pills.
Then I don't know what happened, the fight. I didn't know if he was hitting her or messing with her. Then I started getting scared. You could see that she was not okay, and then I asked what happened. And then when I said I'm going to leave, this guy pulled a gun on me, a black pistol. I'm not guilty. This guy's the one who killed her. How did he kill her? Hitting her. Just hitting her. And I believe choking her. Because when I was high on drugs, he was holding her, grabbing her. I said, God help me. What am I going to do? Maybe he's going to kill me. So I bought the gasoline. And we went to the white warehouse. And then he said to me, put the gasoline on her. I said to him, no. And he told me, laughing, you do it. So I did it.
And with that, Young says he gave Reyes money and a gas can, and then walked back into his apartment and went to sleep.
Why in the world did you not walk inside, pick up the phone, and call the police?
I still think about that to this day. I actually wish I could go back in time and do that, because that's something I do regret.
Fearing a blistering cross-examination, Ernesto's attorneys did not allow him to testify in front of the jury. Instead, they played the TV interview in court to let Ernesto tell his tale without a prosecutor to challenge him directly.
It was very difficult for me to sit there and to listen to that. I always had the confidence that as the trial unfolded, that they would see the kind of Melanie that everybody that met Melanie saw.
It takes the jury just 3 hours to come back with a unanimous guilty verdict, and Reyes will have to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Donavan Young is also sentenced to 8 years for tampering with evidence. After the verdict, outside the courtroom, a sobbing Reyes' mother approached the Goodwins and was hugging Peggy and saying how sorry she was that what her son had done. It was quite a scene. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next Visitors Day, and don't let me catch you in my gated community.